Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight, brought to you by Crimson Cloak Publishing, the earth-friendly publisher with books for both adults and children in a wide variety of genres, available in paperback and hardcover, as ebooks, and with some audiobooks as well. In the Spotlight is a wide-ranging weekly interview show with authors, entrepreneurs, professionals, and other experts. Your host is Cynthia McGregor. Opinions and views expressed by the guests or hosts on this show do not necessarily reflect the opinions and views of the creator, Crimson Cloak Radio, the network, the hosts, or sponsors. And now, here's Cynthia.
Hi, thank you very much, Carly McCracken, and welcome, folks, to another edition of In the Spotlight. Our first guest, who isn't with me yet, is Judy Hoberman, and I'm waiting to hear information. Oh, hold on, I've just got an email from my second guest looking for call-in information. Oh Lord, we're on the air. I can't reach our first guest, and our second guest is asking for call-in information, which it's hard for me to send her when I'm on the air with trying to get a hold of our first guest. What a snafu this show is turning out to be. Hold on a second while I get a hold of my second guest, and hold on. Cinda McGregor on Skype. Okay, there's my first guest. Okay, hold on. Okay, there's my first guest.
I'm sorry, there was Skype wouldn't let me get on.
Oh, goodness. I tried calling you 4 or 5 times, but, well, anyhow, we're live, so
okay. Great, I'm excited.
Now that we're on the air, let me introduce you. Judy Hoberman is the president of Walking on the Glass Floor and Selling in a Skirt. She's an international speaker, trainer, coach, author, and mentor. Her 30 years in business have given her both the knowledge and the sense of humor about how men and women sell, work, and live differently, which will enlighten you in learning how both genders can support each other's successes in a more productive way. Judy was a TEDx speaker talking about prejudging people, something we all do without even thinking. She is the author of 4 books, including her latest, Walking on the Glass Floor, which is about the soft skills of leadership. As her book was coming off the printing press, Judy completed a program from Cornell University's College of Business and Women in Leadership and a second program for women in entrepreneurship. She was recently named as a Woman to Watch for International Women's Day 2019 from Thrive Global. Judy's mission to help one woman a day by following an important philosophy. Women want to be treated equally, not identically. Oh boy, are those words to remember and live by. Let me repeat it. Women want to be treated equally, not identically. Now, Judy says this is what she's coming on the show to talk about. She says, think about this. You've worked hard to get where you are. You're respected by your colleagues, maybe even envied by your friends. You have a great reputation. You're known for your integrity, honesty, and intelligence, plus a whole lot more. And yet deep down inside, you have that feeling that sometimes you are, for lack of a better term, an imposter. You're putting on a great front on the outside, And inside you have that internal conflict. Am I enough? Judy has interviewed enough women to know that this is one of the missing pieces in the puzzle of leadership. This takes courage, and that it's one of the 7 unexpected qualities of women who lead. When the word leadership is mentioned, it's funny that everyone thinks of the CEO of a large company with hundreds of people that you're responsible for. You can be a leader of 100 or 10 or simply yourself. Leadership is about you and me and who we are in this position and who we can be, whether you're moving out of a dorm room or moving into an executive suite. You're already a leader. The goal is not just to invite you to be in that position, but to stay and let the magic happen. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for all those lovely thoughts. I'm ready when you are.
I'm ready when you are, Judy. Judy, many people know what the glass ceiling is, but what do you mean by walking on the glass floor, the title of your just-released book?
So if you think about it, it's a really good visual, isn't it? You know, you've moved beyond that ceiling that everybody talks about, and you're walking on the glass floor. So I envision a growing movement of women that talk about this glass floor. It's the flip side of the glass ceiling. And while we're being supported to continually learn and grow as leaders, the reality is that even though women are not yet represented in positions of leadership at nearly the pace and the scale that we should be, many women are successfully advancing toward and into those leadership roles. And so many times, Cynthia, it's with the help of other women. And our job is to keep them there and lend additional support. Because recruiting is easy, it's the retention that's hard. So when you get to the glass floor, we don't want you to tiptoe on and say, maybe I'll try it, maybe I won't. We want you to stay. We want you to be there. We want you to be a woman of leadership that can inspire and influence and empower others.
Judy, you talk about the 7 qualities of leadership in your book. What are the 7 qualities of leadership?
So for me, the 7 qualities that I think about for when I think about women who lead, and there's also, a good chance that some of these are going to be good for men as well. It's passion, authenticity, courage, communication, decisiveness, resilience, and generosity. So the book is divided into those 7 main parts.
Can you break down what you mean by each of them?
Yeah, absolutely. Each one has a chapter to itself about what's important. And it's funny because I was just interviewed by somebody who is a Marine, and he said that all of these qualities are part of what the Marines believe in. So he was excited. So the passion is really about, what are you excited about every day? What do you want to get up and do? And even, when they say even if you weren't paid, that you would still do it, that's where your passion comes in. Your authenticity is really about who you are. How do you show up every day? When people see you, what do they know about you that you're going to either have a certain behavior, or there's certain things that they can count on for you? Courage is when you do something that, even though you may be scared to death to do it, you do it anyway. Because you're going to be, as a leader, you're going to be asked to do things that are way out of your comfort zone. And that's where the courage comes in. Communication is a huge topic, and it's different between men and women. It's how you ask questions. It's how you listen. It's what your body language looks at. And so communication is going to be, how do you understand what the people that you're in charge of, or even yourself, really understand what's going on? Because, if you think about some of the different generations, people like to text while other people like to speak in person. So you have to know how people want to be communicated with. Decisiveness is, how do you make decisions? Because again, you're going to be asked to make decisions that may not be the best or may not be the most comfortable, and you have to be okay with it. And truthfully, not making a decision is also making a decision. Resilience is when we get to bounce back from things that have pushed us down. It could be something emotional. It could be something that happened in business. It could be that, all of a sudden the business starts to tank. So what do you do? How do you get yourself back up? Because I always tell everybody that my clients and people that I know and love, give yourself permission to wallow in it when you push down, but also give yourself a time limit to get yourself back up. And then the last one is generosity. And that's really, for me, the biggest one, because that's how that's how you invest in other people. That's how people know that you really care. Because the biggest thing that I think you can give people to be generous is your time. And that's the most expensive asset that you have, because you'll never get it back. So those are my 7.
Why do you think it's important for women to read leadership books written by other women? And is that one of the reasons you wrote the book?
Yes, ma'am. This book is all about women in leadership. And so who better than a woman in leadership to write books about women in leadership? Because this is really my experience. Throughout my career, it's always made me wonder why someone with no sales experience would be a sales trainer. Or if you wanted to teach others to sell like a woman, why would this not be taught by a woman? So I applied the philosophy to that when I was writing Walking on the Glass Floor. And we also reached out to many other women in leadership to get their take on certain topics. However, I'm also excited to say that we did not exclude great comments and suggestions and quotes by men about women in this book about leadership.
And Judy, is this book only for those who are in a leadership position at the corporate level?
No, and as you said in the very beginning when you were talking about leaders, um, a leader can be leading yourself. A leader could be somebody that is a corporate, could be an entrepreneur. So for me, the book is really to strengthen those 7 essential qualities that will serve women in business and in life. And so whether you are a seasoned leader or you're just beginning your career, we want you to understand that you are a leader, and we want you on the glass floor. So whether you're currently a leader or want to lead a company or a department or a business or an organization or any institution, this book is about giving you those steps to take. You know, being in a corporate environment is not something that everyone looks for or is even invited to work in. But being a leader is not dictated by your position. You can be a leader as an entrepreneur, and a leader has those certain characteristics that makes them a leader. And having these 7 essential qualities will make you an even better leader.
And can you tell us about your Walking on the Glass Floor Foundation and how it's connected to the book?
Yeah, so in 2016, my mission was always to help 1 woman a day. And it was very interesting because people would say, well, what about 10 women? What about 100 women? What about 1,000? And my answer is always, if I could help 1 woman a day exponentially, it's going to be huge. So no matter where I was or what I was doing, when I said I wanted to help 1 woman a day, when I said it out loud, there would always be that 1 woman that would raise her hand and ask me, could she be my woman that day? And it was extremely humbling to me, and just for so many reasons, but one being that women are not generally inclined to ask for help. So every single time I asked, someone would ask for my help, and that was really, truly humbling. But in 2017, I knew I needed to take this one step further and do something on a larger scale. And I wanted to reach more women, and I wanted to be able to give back to serve and support women who may not have the ability to have a Cynthia in their corner or a Judy in their corner, or somebody that can't ask for help. And if they do ask for help, they're always turned down. So one day my husband made this comment about giving back to charities and foundations and scholarships. And he figured if I could find ways to support women in leadership, both those in the high level positions and those that were emerging leaders, as well as the causes that mattered to them, it would be a great way to start a movement. And it was because of that conversation that Walking on the Glass Floor Foundation was actually born. And we're already helping women in charities around the globe. So in 2018, the foundation's mission statement went into full swing, and it's to support and empower women by sourcing, publishing, and distributing educational materials for women in leadership and organizations that support women in leadership. So through the foundation, we're also developing partnerships with companies and organizations that are really committed to women in leadership. So the book is the first of many resources that we're making available. And then we've got training programs that are being developed as we speak, and there's mentoring and mastermind groups and all these great things. And as we do things, we update my website. So it's really exciting, and you know, you just have to keep coming back and see what's new for us. So as women leaders, we walk the walk, and even when we're challenged, We want to make sure that we're walking on the glass floor.
Judy, your tagline is women want to be treated equally, not identically, and that resonates with me. But can you explain to my listeners what you mean by that?
Well, it's very short and sweet and to the point, and some people will get it right away, and some people really want to sit down and have a conversation, which I love when they ask that, because truthfully, all it means is that women want the same opportunities as their male counterparts. We don't want to dress like men. We don't want to act like men. We don't want to be treated like men because it's so confusing for everyone. We really want to have the same opportunities presented to us and available to us, and then let us do what we do best. Now, with that said, I would never, ever, ever say that somebody should hire me or hire you or hire a woman just because we're women. We have to be qualified. We have to be the right person. So if that's the case, if all we want to do is be treated equally, present an opportunity to us, be a champion for us, and then let us do what we do best.
Okay. And you include men into the book, your talks, and your training. Why is that important to you?
So if you think about it, we've been around a long time, Cynthia, and we've seen things come and go, and we've seen people that are trying so hard to, be relevant and bring value. But the truth of the matter is, even today, there are so many industries and so many situations where there are no women in leadership positions. So you have to decide, is this really for me, or is there a way that I can be part of that culture and bring value? And when there are no women that can be your mentor or your sponsor or your advocate, we need to find the men that are available. And I talk about men who champion women. Many men will actually self-identify, and others need a bit of explaining what it really looks like. So I go back to my tagline, women want to be treated equally, not identically. And we hope that there are men that will support women through mentoring and advocating for them. And there are some great men out there that will be delighted to do this. And I had so many in my career, and I've never had a female mentor until after I started my company. So male or female, it doesn't matter. If they say no or they don't have time to help, they're not your people. So move on, because there's so many others that truly are out there wanting to help you.
Your book has a training program that it led to. Who is it for, and what are the outcomes from going through the training?
So if we continue that part of the conversation, where today's workplace has more opportunities and more challenges than ever, we have to apply that to women in the workforce. So it's important for organizations to understand and respond to their environment in a way that sets both their employees and themselves for success. And part of this includes recognizing women currently in leadership, as well as those who are those emerging leaders, and understand how to promote and retain them into those opportunities. So the training that we have developed from the book itself it's a 2-day training, and it shares those key leadership tools, those 7 qualities and concepts from Walking on the Glass Floor. But then it's also very in-depth, and it's very engaging, it's very hands-on, it's very experiential, very transformational, and it will be life-changing and culture-changing, because there's also parts of it is, why are we still talking about women? And what's the ROI? And is this a women's issue, or is it truly a business issue? So no matter what your level of expertise is, you're going to walk away with a wealth of self-discovery and new concepts to grow yourself and your career in leadership. So you're going to be able to either learn or redefine the leadership skills and qualities that you have already inside, and you're going to have greater confidence, because you're going to grow personally and professionally, and you're also going to be able to support your organization with the roles that they need you to have. And we understand the differences between how we do treat people equally and not identically, and also explore those qualities needed for the men to support women in the workforce. And we also ask you to make a commitment to move the needle just a little. Like I was doing, one woman a day was my goal. Well, if everybody does one thing a day, imagine how we can change.
Yes. Judy, let's go back to the question of leadership for one person in a one-person business. If you're a solopreneur, or a solo practitioner like myself, how does the concept of leadership apply to you?
Well, you have to remember that there's always someone watching. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And I'm not talking stalking or doing something creepy. I'm saying that people are always watching what you're doing. I'm sure there are people that watch everything that you do, Cynthia, because you've written books and you help people and you coach and you educate. And so when people want to see how things are done, someone's watching you and they're thinking like, wow, I wish I could work with her, or I wish that I could be, influenced by her. So we're all influencers and we're all leaders. And whatever you do, you have to make sure that what you do is something that you want people to follow. You have to give people a reason to follow you. Everybody talks about the influencers on social media, and some of them are influencers because they do weird things, but there are some that are influencers because they really change people's lives, and that's what a leader of one can do. Look at some of the amazing people that are out there today that are just like you and I are solopreneurs, and they're one person, but they're leaders and they're influencers.
Judy, who was the biggest influence on your life?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, because that was like one of the best stories ever about this whole thing. It was my grandmother. My grandmother was a feminista. So she was a feminist and she was a fashionista. And her name was Sadie Flown, but you would never say Sadie Flown. You'd have to say Sadie L. Flown, because she earned the L. She was very detail oriented. But the best part about her was that she was one of the only people that truly believed in me. And so she was the one that supported me, and she would say you could do anything you want, and she was the one that would bring me books to read and encourage me to write and do all these things. And you have to have somebody in your life that does that. And unfortunately, there are stories that you'll hear. My father was not one of those people, and so I didn't have that champion as a male role model. I didn't have that, but I did have my grandmother, and she was the one that really, everything I've done, everything I do is all because of what she gave me, the rules and the laws and the lessons and everything that she corrected me with, and she guided me along the way.
Judy, do you have any daughters, and how are you raising them to be women leaders?
That's great. I love that question. I have a daughter and a son, and my daughter is eerily like me. And sometimes I see things in her that make me crazy, and then I realize that's just me. It's the same. She's the same person, but she's always been taught that she could do anything that she wanted to, and I encourage her to do great things. And she's a very strong-willed young woman, and she's amazing. She's a good friend. She's a good listener. She's a shoulder to cry on, and she's somebody to laugh with. But I want to say that I also raised my son to be a good man for and towards women, and he's married and they just had a baby, and she thanked me for raising such a good son, because she couldn't have chosen any better partner for her, especially going through labor and delivery. So I'm very proud of both my children, and my daughter knows that she has no limits. She's on that glass floor dancing with me, and my son knows that that's how he wants his wife to be as well.
That's great. Judy, your book is available on your website, www.walkingontheglassfloor.com.
Yes, and it's also available on Amazon and everywhere else.
Are all your books available there?
Yeah. Yes.
And tell us again the titles, please.
So Walking on the Glass Floor is the newest one. My first book, which is still my baby, is Selling in a Skirt. Famous Isn't Enough was the book I wrote as an entrepreneur, because it's about every mistake you're going to make, and then I probably made 50 more than that, so I included all my mistakes. And then the fourth one is Pure Wealth, and that was a compilation book with 25 other women, and we talked about what pure wealth is, and believe it or not, very few talked about money. So wealth is a lot more than money.
What is wealth in your view?
Oh, my wealth to me is being blessed with, amazing family and friends, and being present when you're with them, and having harmony in your life.
Judy, would you read us a passage from one of your books, preferably Walking on the Glass Floor?
Yeah, let's see. I'll read one about generosity because that's my
Okay.
favorite.
Okay.
So, okay. So, when you imagine what generosity looks like, what images come to mind? Children sharing toys or snacks, people donating money to a cause, groups coming together to support families in need. There's wonderful examples, and I've been fortunate to participate in all of these. But my absolute favorite thing to donate happens to be my most valuable possession, my time. I love sharing my experiences and expertise with others, and sometimes they don't have to have any resources, and I might say or do that one thing that changes their life. And I often readily volunteer to do what needs to be done if no one else steps up to the plate. Occasionally, I'm criticized for being too available, typically by well meaning people who say I dilute my brand by giving my material away for free. However, I don't consider these transactions to be free because the recipients must also use their most valuable possession, their time. For me, it's all about the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Great, great. Judy, we have about 2.5 minutes. What parting words of advice or parting words of any sort do you have for our listeners?
So, whether you believe that you are a leader or not, let me just re-emphasize the fact that there are tremendous opportunities out there for every single one of us. And you have to have a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. Whether you have a lot of money or you have a lot of possessions, that doesn't matter. Nobody cares. The truth of the matter is what they really want from you is your time and your expertise. And the truth is, you have a lot to offer. And for the women listening, of course, we always say we're not enough, we're not this enough, we're not that enough, whatever that enough is. And let me say that you are way more than enough. Like really way more than enough. And so you have to change your mindset. As an entrepreneur, you're going to go through things that are easy and hard, and you're going to want to quit and you're going to want to stop and all these other things. The truth is, my truth is that you don't give up. You might have to adjust the way you do things, but if something is your passion, don't give up on it. Just do what you can to make it happen and have resources around you.
Don't give up on it. That's a good motto to follow. I have one more question since we have time. If everybody is a leader, who's going to follow them? Don't we need followers too?
Yeah, well, you need followers, but the leaders are also followers. A great leader knows who to follow. A great leader knows when he or she needs to follow as well. And so that's called followership. And I learned that from my husband, who is a retired Air Force colonel, and he talked about followership, and I thought he was making up a word. But the truth is, it is a word, and it is an activity. The leaders know when to step back and to allow someone else to step forward. And so, no, we're not all leaders and we're not all followers, but you have an option to do both.
Well, thank you very much,
Thank
Judy
you.
Hoberman, for being my guest on the show today. Good luck with all your endeavors. Mega sales to your book. And perhaps you'll come back and visit us on the show again.
I absolutely would love that. And thank you so much. And I apologize for being at Skype's mercy.
Not your fault. Okay, well, let me slip in a commercial here. In the Spotlight is brought to you by Crimson Cloak Publishing, publishers of nonfiction, fiction, for adults, for kids, focusing this week on I'll See You at Rainbow Bridge, a book that talks about people who were bereaved when their pets passed, only to have their pets' spirits come back and visit them in one way or another. It, like all the many other wonderful books from Crimson Cloak Publishing, is available at www.crimsoncloakpublishing.com. And now our next guest is waiting in the wings, so let me bring on Meagan Meehan. Meagan?
Hello?
Hi, welcome
Hi,
to the
Cynthia.
show.
How are you?
Welcome to the show, Meagan. How are you today?
Oh, very well. Thank you for having me. It's a big honor to be interviewed.
Well, we're happy to have you here. Let me tell the audience a little bit about you. Meagan J. Meehan is a published author, poet, cartoonist, and produced playwright. She is also a stop-motion animator and an award-winning abstract artist who presently works as a journalist. Meagan holds a bachelor's in English literature, a master's in communication, and is currently pursuing a PhD in educational psychology. She is an animal advocate and a fledgling toy and game designer. Wow, you wear a lot of different hats, Meagan, don't you?
Yes, thank you. Well, everything kind of interconnects. I mean, creativity is creativity. So with the writing, for example, if you can write a children's book, you can usually write a novel. If you can write a novel, you can usually write a short story. If you can write a short story, you can usually write a play. So it all kind of falls into place.
Meagan is here today to discuss her latest children's book, Abella's Adventure, as well as her upcoming children's book writing class geared at adults and possibly older kids and teens, which ends with every participant having their book professionally illustrated, audio narrated, and published on the Smart Kids Club. She also wants to talk about her artwork and her curation, which she's doing to provide aid to charitable causes such as cat rescue organizations. So tell us, Meagan, how did you get into writing and what inspired your book, Abella's Adventure?
Well, I got into writing when I was very little because I was always read to. My parents read to me all the time. I mean, we pretty much read every single picture book that was available in the library. I was just always exposed to literature, and I always loved stories. So I started writing my own stories when I was very little. I wrote my first quote-unquote novel when I was 6, called The Farmer. And that was really my first time sitting down and like really writing a book, and I was fascinated by the way that it felt in my hands because it was just on construction paper. It was just unfolded construction paper, but I was just always fascinated by books and the idea that you could write something down and then hold the book in your hands. So it was just kind of something that I was always fascinated by and always wanted to do. And I got my first novel published when I was very young. I actually wrote it when I was 19/20. I was in my undergraduate degree at the time, and I had met another student in one of my classes, and she had published with this mid-sized publisher called Avalon Books. They're no longer in existence, but they were out of Manhattan, and I'm based in New York, so that was great. I did end up writing a book for them. I ended up writing the first one was a Western, and that was written when I was 19 and 20, and it was published when I was 22. And then right after that, I wrote them a mystery, and I wrote the mystery when I was 21, and that got published by them. And then I also ended up writing a romantic comedy for them because they had 3 genres, Western, mystery, and romance. And I'm really not a romance writer, but I thought, I'd give it a go. So I wrote them a romantic comedy. Unfortunately, that they shut down before I could give them that one, but I ended up getting it published down the line later with Star Publishing. So I've never had to self-publish, which is really lucky because I don't have an agent, but I have started writing, and I've had success with writing since I was really young. Like, for example, that first novel that I wrote, they were accepted straight off the bat. I actually did not go through the rejection letter process, which is remarkable. So I was just very, very blessed. As far as Abella's Adventure goes, I had always wanted to write children's books. But of all the genres that you can possibly deal with, children's books are absolutely the toughest genre to get published when you don't have an agent. And I'm still actively seeking an agent. I still don't have one. But I was lucky to find a small publisher of ebooks called Smart Kids Club, and I will talk about them more later. And I loved working with them. I published like 40 books with them. They do the most beautiful illustrations. I really enjoyed it. But I had never had a physical children's book published, and I was always looking for publishers. And then in 2016, I had my first short play produced called The Muse. And The Muse is about this little goblin-type creature. And I found when we did a call for actresses, I discovered this lovely lady named Tracy Jane, who was not only an actress, but also a costume designer. And she ended up designing the costume for this character of the Muse. So when I was talking to her, like I for example, one day I went to her house, her studio, and I tried on the costume because I was about the same size as the actress, and she couldn't make it that night, and we were like tailoring the costume to make sure it would fit. And as I was there, I was chatting to her, and I noticed that she had a book in her house, a children's book, that she had illustrated, and she had illustrated this children's book for a company called Acute by Design. And she was telling me that Acute by Design was a small publisher, and they produced books that were, physical copies of children's books. They were traditional. They did not charge artists or illustrators, or writers or illustrators, I should say, rather, and they accepted work without agents. So this immediately intrigued me, and I went and I looked up Acute by Design, and I discovered that they are indeed a small traditional press, and they liked books that had a multicultural edge. And I decided, oh my goodness, I have to reach out to them. I have to write a book for them. So I actually tailor-made the book for them because I knew that they liked having stories with a multicultural edge. And I decided to make my book, A Bella's Adventure, about a parrot from Brazil because my best friend lives in Brazil. And I thought it would be really nice to have, a story about a bird from Brazil coming to New York, the same way that she and her family have come to New York, and, see the sights and, have a little adventure. So I thought that was a cute place to start. And then I decided, no, it'd be cool to have a couple of Portuguese words infused throughout the book. So as you're reading the book, which is in English language, there's a couple of words in Portuguese, the language that they speak in Brazil, in the book. And I submitted the book. I reached out to the company on Facebook, and I got in contact with Michael, and who is the owner of the company, Michael Sharp, and they accepted the book. And I ended up getting it published, and it was also illustrated. Acute by Design had their own illustrators, but I work as a journalist, and through being a journalist, I have a lot of connections with the art world, because I write about art and entertainment and lifestyle and leisure. And I found this wonderful artist, actually through my pediatrician. My old doctor had told me about this other patient of hers who had grown up to be an illustrator, and her name is Meg Petrillo, and she is also a bird lover, an animal lover, and she made the most beautiful illustrations. So I introduced her to Acute by Design. She illustrated my book, put it together absolutely beautifully, and is now working on some other projects for the company. So it just worked out so fantastically, and the book is beautiful, and I've gone ahead and donated a portion of the proceeds to the book. Every book sold, a portion of the proceeds will go to the Wild Bird Fund in Manhattan, and they look after injured or abandoned wildlife that comes to them from New York or the tri-state area in general. They're a wonderful organization.
Tell us a little more about the Wild Bird Fund.
Well, the Wild Bird Fund, I found out about them, I must have read an article about them at some point, because I'm always writing about, on my column, I write about animals a lot, and worthy causes that help animals. And the Wild Bird Fund, they're a nonprofit located in Manhattan. But what they do is that if you find a bird that is injured or sick, even something that, the government considers quote-unquote invasive, like mute swans or Canada geese, a lot of organizations won't help those poor animals because they think they're invasive, they get hurt. The Wild Bird Fund does not operate like that. They will help anything that is found injured in a park or abandoned. So, for example, what they will do is, let's say that you find a baby bird on the ground. This is very common to happen in the spring, specifically with starlings, and also they find pigeons, baby pigeons, which are called squeakers. If they're found abandoned and not being fed, the Wild Bird Fund will take these birds in. They will hand feed them, they'll raise them, but they try to, even though they'll hand raise them, they try not to get them attached to people because the goal is to raise them into healthy adults and then to release them back into the wild. If a bird is found that cannot be released into the wild, like, for example, sometimes after Easter, they'll find chickens because people will get chicks in a little Easter basket. And then when the chickens start to grow up, the people will just can't take care of them anymore and will just release them into public parks. And as outrageous as that sounds, that happens quite frequently. So if they find animals like that, they'll take them in, they'll look after them, and then they'll find places like sanctuaries to bring them so they can live out very happy lives. But I love their organization. They do a lot of educational outreach. And in fact, on Mother's Day of this year, which was May 12th, they had a big event at the New York Historical Society, which is a museum in Manhattan. And myself and the illustrator, Meg Petrillo, were invited to come to this event. And we did a book reading, a book signing, and we did art involving A Bella's Adventure that was tied into the presentation of the birds by the Wild Bird Fund that happened later in the day, where people could come in and feed baby birds and see how they're taken care of. And it was really a wonderful day. And our book is currently in the gift shop of the New York Historical Society, which is really fantastic. And I'm hoping to get it into the bookshops of some other museums around New York, just because the illustrations feature so many key iconic locations in the city.
And aside from children's books, you write in other genres now too, don't you?
Yes, many. My novels right now, I've published a Western, a mystery, and a romantic comedy. I have a horror novel coming out at the end of the year in December. I have an anthology of short horror stories coming out soon. I'm primarily known as a horror writer, which is funny because it's like the complete other side of the spectrum of children's books.
Yes.
But I've always liked the horror genre, and I've written a number of short stories that have been produced by Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, which is a fantastic channel on YouTube. The name of the company is actually Chilling Entertainment. But they do beautiful work. The stories are professionally audio narrated and then put on YouTube. And I've gotten a lot of fans that way. So that was really fun. I also love science fiction and fantasy. And I'm actually in the process right now of writing first I'm writing the science fiction novel. And then I'm writing a fantasy novel because I submitted 2 concepts for 2 different, like one science fiction story, one fantasy story, to a publisher, and they liked both concepts. So they asked me to go ahead and write the books and submit them to them. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm working on my science fiction story first because I have that more fleshed out in my head, and then I'm working on the fantasy novel. But the science fiction piece is called Solaris Oasis, and the fantasy piece is called The Sandman's Apprentice, and I'm hoping to have them out by like 2022, 2023, somewhere around there. And then I also work on anthologies of science fiction stories and fantasy stories because I always write. I really like writing short stories because they take less time and I can kind of go from one theme to another, which is a lot of fun to do. So I have those. So I have basically a science fiction novel in the pipeline, a fantasy novel in the pipeline, science fiction anthology in the pipeline, and fantasy anthology in the pipeline. And then at some point I'm also going to do a crime drama and a novel and a crime drama anthology of short stories. But the most immediate things that are happening next is my horror novel is coming out in December, and my horror short story anthology is coming out in 2020 or 2021, somewhere around there, probably 2020.
You've had plays produced both in theaters and in public parks. What
Yes.
have those experiences been like?
They have been fantastic. I can't really stress what it feels like to watch words that you wrote being acted out by actors. They bring life to them. They literally make the words come to life. And that is just the most surreal, amazing feeling. So my first play that was ever produced was the one that I ended up meeting the costume designer that led to me meeting Acute by Design and you. That was produced in a small theater called the Manhattan Repertory Theater in March of 2016. It was absolutely fantastic to watch the play be produced, in front of audiences and with the lights and with the costumes. It was just incredible. And it was a short play. It was about 10 minutes long. But watching the audience laugh when they were supposed to laugh and get quiet when they were supposed to get quiet and actually react the way that I wrote the piece for people to react was just so surreal and just so wonderful. It was a great experience. Then I had a second play produced at a small theater on Long Island called Theater 294. And it was another short play, and it was a funny comedy about statues. It's called the values of gold, silver, and bronze. And it was about these three statues that argue with each other. Gold, silver, and bronze, about which one is the best. Basically, when their rich owner leaves, they come to life and argue with each other. Oh, I'm the best. No, I'm the best. No, I'm the best. Then a burglar breaks into the mansion and has a sack that's big enough to hold one of them. So he's got to take one of them. So then it becomes, oh no, I'm the worst. You don't want me. You want one of the other two. So it's a funny farce, but I mean, it gets people laughing, and it's, I've been told that a lot of people find that it's cleverly written, which is, again, a really big compliment. And that play is so good for all ages that I decided that it would be nice to see what would happen if I could get it produced in a public park. So there is a very famous park in New York called Flushing Meadows Corona Park. It's famous for having hosted the World's Fair in the 1960s, and there's a big, huge silver globe structure in the park. A silver globe is a sculpture. It's a big, huge globe, and it's iconic of New York. So I reached out to this park, and I got a grant I got a permit to do a play at this park. On Saturday, May 25th, and we put the play on 3 times in the afternoon. It was pretty much every hour on the hour, and we performed it basically right underneath the globe, and we got really great feedback. We got great crowds, and we got people were really pleased by it, and they enjoyed it, and it was a really rewarding experience to be able to put a play on in the park like that. So right now I'm in the process of looking to get grants. I actually have somebody helping me with this, because I would love to get a grant to be able to put plays on in the park throughout the nice months of May to September. And then maybe in the winter, if we could find venues to do them indoors, that would be great too. But it's nice to have the ability to do, free plays for the public, and then to present original new work, and especially when they're comedies and are good for all ages. And that's something that I would really love to do more in the future. So I am hoping I can get a grant to make that a reality.
You're an abstract artist, Meagan. So what is your style like, and what influences your work? And also, how did you get into curation?
Well, yes, I'm an abstract artist. This again started when I was young, because I was always taken to museums by my parents. And I really love work by artists Joan Moreau and Alexander Calder, which is very bright and colorful. And to me, they were kind of capturing imagination when you saw their work on canvases. So I was always fascinated by color, and I was fascinated by abstractness, and I was fascinated by how you could look at a piece of art and see something different. Everybody can look at the same piece and see something different. That style just absolutely intrigued me. So I started doing abstract art when I was very, very, very young, and I got serious about it when I was about 12. However, it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I developed the style that has become my staple style. And my trademark style is basically 3D wall hangings. I'm also a sculptor, but 3D wall hangings is really what I'm known for. So what I do is that I layer canvases, and I use found objects, recycled materials, and I kind of just build up. And my canvases, they look kind of cool when they're sitting on the ground, but they're meant to be hung from a wall, and when they're hanging on a wall, they pop out of the wall a couple of inches. So it's just, they're very different looking, but that's what I like about them. They're also very colorful. They're very shiny. I absolutely love glitter. They're very shiny and colorful and bright. If you look at my work and it makes you smile, then it's done its job, because that's its only purpose in life, to make people happy and to spread joy. I'm also the founder of an art movement called Conscious Perceptionalism. I am currently in the process of trademarking the term. But what conscious perceptionalism means is that, and this is a style that I want to trademark to share with many other artists as well, because it's a movement that I think a lot of artists, especially abstract artists, can incorporate into their work and enjoy. So the concept behind conscious perceptionalism is that when you are working on a piece of work, try to approach it from all angles. So, for example, there's no left, there's no right, there's no up, there's no down. Basically, look at the piece and work at it so that, and render it or create it so that it is equally strong no matter what direction you look at it in. In fact, my work, my pieces from conscious perceptionalism are rigged so that they can turn 360 degrees when they're hanging on a wall. So that way somebody can literally readjust the painting any direction that they want. They can either hang it kind of sideways if they want, and they can look at it and perceive it through any angle. So, on Tuesday it could be hanging one way, on Wednesday another way, Thursday third way, and basically every time that you look at it through a different angle or a different perspective, it's going to look a little different, and you're going to see things that you maybe didn't see before, and it's just very fun, and it's something that I enjoy doing, and it's a concept and a movement that I really want to put out there for other people as well, just because it's fun to see things through a different point of view and a different perspective. And I just think that it's a very nice, it's an interesting concept psychologically.
Meagan, since you're an artist as well as a writer, what motivated you to hook up with Meg Petrillo and have her illustrate a Bella's adventure rather than doing it yourself?
Oh my goodness, well, I'm an abstract artist, but I cannot draw to save my life. I could never do the beautiful illustrations that she did. My work is purely abstract. So I needed somebody that could do really beautiful, realistic, although whimsical, renditions of birds and the city and parks. And that is how I met Meg Petrillo. And I just remembered I didn't actually answer one of your questions. You asked me how I got into curation from the art. The way I got into curation is that I had my first solo show in January of 2018 at a gallery on Long Island called the DeMusi Contemporary Gallery. And the woman that ran this gallery, Raina Mesh, was wonderful, talented curator. And she taught me a lot about curation, and I actually co-curated a show with her. So the gallery, unfortunately, has since closed, but I love the idea of being able to set up art shows and being able to give people the same joy that I had from taking part in art shows and even winning awards at art shows. So I also, again, I like the idea of using art to give back to charitable causes. So I'm right now in the process of planning the curation of an art show that should take place this summer, probably around like July or August, at the Shabby Tabby Cat Cafe in Sayville, Long Island. And what I want to do with this show is invite artists to submit work that has a cat, that is somehow cat themed. It can be realistic, it can be abstract. We want a really wide range of styles. And then there's going to be a small submission fee, but once you pay the fee, you're guaranteed to get into the show. And basically, we want to give a portion of the commission fees, a portion of any sales made, and we're also probably going to have things like award ceremonies and maybe a little raffle. And pretty much the proceeds of the sales and submissions will go to the Cat Cafe and the organization that provides them with the cats, which is called the Golden Horse Society, which is out of Huntington, Long Island. And basically, this is a little cafe that people can come in and they can have coffee and cakes and a little bit of food, and also meet cats that are available for adoption. And I just love the idea of being able to give back to people that do kind things like that for animals, and also give artists a chance to have their works shown.
That's great. Now, you've got an upcoming children's book writing class that ends in the stories getting professionally illustrated and published.
Yes,
Tell us
I do.
about that.
Okay, well, I have, right now I'm working on a PhD called Curriculum Instruction in the Science of Learning. It's basically a fancy term for an educational psychology PhD. My goal is to design online course curriculums. That's what I want to do as a career, and teach primarily college-level courses. But in the meantime, while I'm working on my degree, I have designed online writing classes. So far, the classes that I've run have been in the horror genre, and they've been very successful. And now I'm reaching out. I'm going to launch my very first children's writing class using the same principles that I did for the horror class. It was very successful. So essentially, these are entirely online programs. They are run through a company called Wet Ink, or a platform called the Wet Ink Writing Platform. And they are entirely asynchronous, meaning that you do not have to be online at any specific time. These classes are designed to fit your schedule, so you just come online when you have time, and just every single week there's like a little milestone to reach every single week. Like by the end of the first week, have your concept down pat. By the end of the second week, have your characters fleshed out, so on and so forth. But at the end of each one of these classes, everybody can expect to have a children's book created, a full children's book written and polished. So it looks, it's professionally written, it flows well, it's a good story. And then I am going to be giving these stories to Smart Kids Club. I mentioned them before. They're the company that I have published with over 40 children's ebooks. And they are going to have each one of these stories professionally illustrated, and their artists are absolutely top-notch. I have never been disappointed by anything they've illustrated for me. So the stories are going to be professionally illustrated, professionally audio narrated by a lady that reads all their books, and then posted on the Smart Kids Club website for sale. So essentially, once you take this class, you get your book published and sold to the public, available to the public. And a Smart Kids Club is an ebook publisher, but again, they are a small publisher. They are not self-publishing. So the only thing that you're paying for is the class itself. We are trying to do a thing where if we get more than 12 participants in the class, we are probably going to have a little contest as well, where basically the winner will receive, the first, second, and third place winner will receive ribbons and cash prizes. But that's only if we get more than 12 people in the class. We have room for about 25, 30 people, so I'm really hoping that, people show interest in the class, and there will be payment plans available, so you don't have to pay everything up front. It's nothing like that. But this would be my first children's book writing class, and I'm really looking forward to it because Smart Kids Club is a wonderful organization, and it's a great way for writers that want to create children's books to get their work out there, to get it seen, and also because Smart Kids Club is not a self-publishing site, this is something that you can potentially show to an agent. Like, let's say that you could say, look, I've had a book published, and then also show the agent some of your unpublished work, and who knows, maybe stuff can go from there. Agents are hard to come by, and children's books are very hard to get published if you don't have an agent. So I was just very fortunate to meet a Cute by Design, and it's just something that I want to bring this opportunity to other authors. And the reason that I do the writing classes with the publication at the end is because I have taken a lot of writing classes and really enjoyed them. But then at the end of them, you're left with the story and you don't really know where to go with it. At least now, when you take these classes, you know that you're going to get a story and a publication, so it's very worthwhile. And I do the same thing for the horror stories, and I'm going to be starting writing classes for fantasy, science fiction, and crime drama, and hopefully eventually romance down the road. All of these classes end the same way, in the books being professionally audio narrated and then professionally published in an anthology. The children's book class is just a little bit special because the book is not only professionally published and audio narrated, but it's also illustrated, as children's books are.
Now, does a person have to live in New York in order to take this class, or is it online?
It's entirely online. You can be from anywhere in the world. I just ask that you submit work to me in English, like you type on the message boards in English and submit the stories to me to proofread in English. And you also have to, I just ask that you pay me in US dollars. Other than that, you can be from anywhere. In my horror writing class, I've had students from New Zealand. I really don't care. They can come from anywhere. They can be in any time zone. It doesn't matter.
And the classes are at the time, what am I trying to say? At a certain time, and you have to be present, or you can.
No, they don't. They do not. You can. They're just. I send you the link, and you can log in, and then it's just whenever you have time to enter the class, that's when you do it. They're entirely online. There is no specific time. It's just whenever you have the chance to go on and engage with the content. That's great. The only thing that I have is, like, at the end of every single week, there's something to be finished. By the end of week 1, you want to have your story idea down pat. At the end of week 2, you want to have your character concepts thought out. But again, I make these stories I make these classes, very comfortable for people, and I want people to have fun with them. So if you can't make a deadline, don't worry about it. Even if you're not completely finished by the time the class ends, I will work with you one-on-one to make sure that your book gets finished and published.
Meagan, we have 30 seconds. Where can people buy your book?
Oh, people can buy Bella's Adventure. It's on Amazon. It's ABELA''S Adventure. It's by Meagan J. Meehan, and my name is spelled Meagan. J, middle initial J is in Jackrabbit, and then Meehan, Meehan. And you can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach out to me. You can also reach out to me on email, and my email is, I can give you my email from my writing that my Chilling Tales site. It's Meagan, it's Meagan, at chillingtalesfordarknights.com. That's my horror writing website, but my horror writing email, but you can reach out to me about anything on there, including the children's book. And I look forward to hearing from your readers or your listeners, and thank you again for having me. It's been a real honor.
Thank you for being here, Meagan J. Meehan. And again, remember, the show is brought to you by Crimson Cloak Publishing with a wide variety of books in fiction and nonfiction for adults and for kids at crimsoncloakpublishing.com.
You've been listening to In the Spotlight with your host, Cynthia McGregor, brought to you by Crimson Cloak Publishing. For a wide variety of books for both adults and children in print, ebook, and audio formats, join us every Tuesday at the same time as In the Spotlight brings you interesting guests to entertain and enlighten you. I'm Carly McCracken. On behalf of Crimson Cloak Publishing, thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again next week.
Don't forget to pass the smile along, folks. Bye now.
Bye.